if we're being honest, we probably can assume that some non-violent people, even some innocent people, have been caught unwittingly in this net. Some of them may be innocent. I mean, anytime the government assumes emergency powers and arrests more than 70,000 people without ensuring their due process rights, it's bound to happen.
He says it so casually. Arrest 70,000 people, ignoring their due process rights. Look, guys, it's just what happens with fascism, okay? You just gotta hunker down and deal with it.
Would you rather have a safe society where a few innocent people are imprisoned, or would you rather have a very dangerous society where only a few guilty people are imprisoned?
A system for the safety of everybody, a couple innocent people just have to go to prison. That's not a safe society, Matt. That's not a safe world either. So Matt Walsh posted this video and I wanted to watch it. It's called "We Should Consider Dealing with Criminals This Way." And since Matt Walsh is pretty good with being insane, I thought maybe this would be an interesting video.
There are so many news reports now on rampant crime in major cities that at this point you can't be blamed if your eyes glaze over when you see them. There are only so many clips of thugs shoplifting, doing street takeovers, or shooting at cops that you can watch. And at some point, even though it's horrible, you get numb to it. But one recent report from CNN on property crime in San Francisco stands out. We played part of this clip a couple of weeks ago on the show, but here it is in full context. Watch.
San Francisco businesses fed up with crime. One sandwich shop owner is calling for action after he says he was attacked outside his store. He says he yelled at a man to stop urinating on his trash can and then was sucker punched. His Instagram post about the incident has now gone viral.
I'm fed up with this city. It's like, I can't just be outside and just running a business without getting punched in the face. It shouldn't be this way at all. Like, this isn't how our city should be.
No, it's not.
That's definitely a tough reality right now, and it's true that crime is out of control at points. But it's also true that when you live in a city, it is inevitable that you are going to be exposed or at least susceptible to more violence. You are in closer quarters with more people. It is inevitable.
Clear what was said before the altercation or whether there's even video of it, but San Francisco police have said they are investigating. It comes as some stores are locking up everything from coffee to frozen food to try to combat theft. Our Kyung La visited one Walgreens that's hit by shoplifters more than a dozen times a day. It happened 3 times while she was inside.
Wow.
Richie Greenberg walked into a San Francisco Walgreens when he saw in the frozen food section this.
Chains, heavy chains that went from padlock to padlock on both sides of the doors. And this was bizarre, something I'd never seen before. This is just more icing on the cake, telling us that rampant crime has become a regular part of life.
So typical that in the...
It's true. It's definitely, again, sad reality of it. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, though.
30 minutes we were at this Walgreens. We watched 3 people, including this man, steal.
Did that guy pay? Did that guy pay? He didn't pay.
So this Walgreens is supposedly hit by shoplifters more than any other Walgreens in the United States, which is really saying.
All right, so let's hear if Matt Walsh is going to give us a very nuanced take. That's going to be, I'm sure, not brain dead in the slightest. People
are walking in and out with merchandise at will without paying. Shoplifters robbed the store 3 times while CNN was inside reporting on shoplifting. As I said, you've seen portions of that clip when it went viral.
Did Matt Walsh go woke? He just quoted CNN. Oh, shit.
Several weeks ago, we played it on the show, but we never played the end of that segment, and here it is.
San Francisco City Supervisor Matt Dorsey, former police spokesman and recovering drug addict, sees the rampant shoplifting as a systemic problem, from city leaders to an understaffed police force to the fentanyl crisis.
When you're seeing that level of retail theft, that tends to be subsistence level retail theft. People are hungry. People are hungry. There is a level of addiction playing out in many parts of our city. It's happening at levels we really haven't seen in San Francisco. What I'm hearing from my residents and what I'm hearing from San Franciscans is it's time for tough love. We are not doing any addict in this city favors by enabling behavior that is potentially deadly in ways we have never seen.
That was a pretty good summary of everything, I think. Yeah, there is definitely some systemic issues there at play. Like what they said, fentanyl crisis, there are some people who are poor and hungry. And then the police force, everything else. Yeah, there are problems with the overall system, of course.
Now, in a statement to CNN, Walgreens says it is focused on safety and preventative measures, but that retail theft remains one of its top challenges. Here's some important context, though, on the city, Aaron. Property crime and violent crime at the end of last year was actually lower than it was before the pandemic. So what's going on here?
So first, CNN trots out a city supervisor to inform you that the causes of all this shoplifting are systemic, sort of like racism in that way. He's implying that there's no way to solve it. But of course, you should pay a lot of, consultants and government agencies a ton of.
What? Wait, did he just say systemic like racist in that? Guys, I don't think Matt Walsh knows what systemic means besides systemic racism. Oh no, I think he heard systemic and literally thought that meant just systemic racism. This guy's a syndicated political commentator, bro. What?
Of money to advisor to inform you that the causes of all this shoplifting are systemic, sort of like racism in that way. He's implying that there's no way to solve it. But of course,
he's implying there's no way to solve it. First of all, they didn't say anything about systemic racism. They gave examples of the systemic issues at play, including the police force. So they didn't even bring up racism. Second of all, how is that implying that they can't solve it? It starts with identifying the problem, bruh. You have to start with first identifying the systemic issues. People are hungry and there's poverty. How can we fix that? There's a drug crisis with the fentanyl issue. How can we fix that? What are you talking about? Bruh, he hears systemic and instantly thought it meant systemic racism. And now he's saying that it's implying there's no way to solve it, which is just bullshit.
A lot of consultants and government agencies a ton of money to try to solve it, even though it can't be solved because it's systemic. That's what every bureaucrat means when they talk about systemic problems. Systemic problems is really...
Yeah, exactly what that means. Give money to the government or something.
That's just a jobs program for bureaucrats, in other words. And then the CNN reporter comes back and she says that she's providing some important context. And what is that context? Well, she says that property crime in San Francisco is lower than it was before the pandemic. In other words, as bad as the footage you just saw might look, overall, the city's doing fine. The ice cream sandwiches might be locked away with chains and people are...
That's not even what she said. She said, so what's going on? She was saying, even though it's lower, it still seems like it's crazy. So what the hell is going on? That's what she said. She didn't say everything's fine. She just said, here's some context. That is valuable context. He can't even grasp that maybe just nuance is just that, just additional nuance that you can kind of take with it what you will. And it's not always trying to convince you of stuff. It's projection, because for him, everything he says and does and the way he thinks is slanted in one direction. So he thinks that that's how everything else is. So when he hears additional nuance or whatever, it just Windows XP shutdown noise, Doo-doo-doo-doo. He doesn't understand. He thinks it's just like them giving an argument or making an excuse.
So brazen about stealing that they're doing it in front of news cameras. Still, the city is on the right trajectory. Everything is fine. Nothing to see here. That's the message. Now, in the world
That's literally not the message. Nothing in the clip you played suggested that was the message. He's so blatantly dishonest, man. It's almost funny because his audience just goes with it too. They have to recognize that he's dishonest. Or maybe they're just so brain dead themselves that they don't even realize also. But my God.
Statistics, they have a few terms for this, and one of them is non-response bias, another is measurement bias. So if you're looking at a chart of reported property crimes, and it goes up, and then up, and up, and then suddenly it goes down out of nowhere, a couple of things are possible. The first possibility, the one that CNN implies is happening here, is that people are committing fewer property crimes. Somehow the criminals have decided on their own to stop doing crime, even though they know they can get eaten.
This is why systemic, the conversation about whether or not the problem is systemic is important, Matt. Because, whether or not criminals decide to stop stealing as much is going to be dependent upon certain systemic issues. You absolute buffoon. For example, if we have a large amount of inflation because of COVID, and then that leads to more unemployment, which leads to more poverty, that might lead to an increase in theft. That's a systemic problem, Matt, that you need to talk about in order to understand.
Easily get away with it. They've decided to just stop doing it. They've decided to become law-abiding citizens out of the goodness of their hearts. Their hearts have all...
Again, because people don't just decide to be criminals usually because they're just bad people who are born bad and want to be bad because they like to be bad. This is retarded. I'm sorry, Matt. This is fucking stupid right now. Everybody knows that why somebody commits crime is going to be dependent upon a variety of other factors.
Grown 3 sizes, like the Grinch when he visited Whoville. The other possibility, though, is that maybe people have simply stopped reporting property crimes because they know the police and the DA won't do anything about them. Could that be happening in San Francisco? Despite the city's property crime statistics, is it possible that property crime is actually increasing? Dick's Sporting Goods just provided another data point to help us answer that question. Dick's has locations all over the country, of course, and they just announced that property theft is costing them so much money that they're now laying off a mass number of employees. The company says that profits dropped 23% last quarter, which is a staggering amount, and they blame much of it on rampant shoplifting. So when you hear that property crime is going down and then you see stories like that, you have to wonder whether the statistics give you an accurate picture, especially when Dick's is far from the only chain that has had to...
Of course, Matt Walsh is looking at Dick's. I'm just kidding. Hold on, let me look this up. Your chance of becoming a victim of a property crime is 1 in 20, which is a rate of 49 per 1,000 population. San Francisco has one of the highest rates of motor vehicle theft in the nation. Shoplifting crimes increased by 20% in San Francisco from pre-pandemic stats in 2019 to 2022. Shoplifting crimes increased. Well, then why did the CNN person say that it was down all overall? From pre-pandemic stats. Yeah. It's so funny too, because like Matt Walsh instead is going on this big like ideological tangent about like maybe they're the biased facts. Blah, 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 blah. Like just look it up, bruh. Like I'm looking it up. Maybe the person just got something wrong, or maybe that stat was outdated. Violent crime is on the rise since the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when violent crime saw a 22% decrease nationwide, but is down overall about 18% from 2017 to 2022. Okay. So then what could have happened is, first, we saw a steep decrease. Again, what are the systemic reasons why this could have happened? Let's see. COVID, people being locked down, things being shut down. It's a lot harder to be out and about and steal quietly. Put some stuff in your bag when everything's closed and you're supposed to be locked down, obviously. So maybe it was just that crime decreased because of that. And now that the lockdowns and everything are over, we're just seeing another continuation of that crime. Now, again, it doesn't mean that this crime is like good or acceptable or something. It's not, but it's also part of living in a big city. So what can we do about it? Again, it starts with identifying the systemic problems. Look it up. Do you believe everything you read on the internet? No, I absolutely don't believe everything I read on the internet. This is why I'm reading this from a ABC News source. It's not, do you think that I just look up Twitter and, oh, Twitter user 123 said so it's true. Do you think that's what I'm doing?
To shut down locations, lay off employees, because they keep losing so much merchandise to theft. It's kind of like when influenza cases started to, went down basically to zero during COVID. Is that because, as the experts said, influenza simply just stopped spreading somehow during the pandemic? That's a comforting explanation.
That's not what the experts said at all, that it just stopped spreading. They said that, again, with people being locked down, with people wearing masks, with a massive increase in people overcompensating and being hyper sanitary, you're going to see a decrease in the flu. What do you... I need to stop getting so triggered by this. I need to go take another sip of my soy, clearly. Man, stupidity does trigger me, I'm not going to lie.
So it mainly went unchallenged. And most statistics from the government are like this.
Of course it's going to go down if you have less people overall being out and about together, interacting with people. And then when they are, they're wearing masks and being more distant and being hyper-sanitary as much as possible.
Technically correct, but wildly misleading. However, one government statistic is very tough to fudge.
It's just misleading because he says so, I guess? Okay.
No matter how hard politicians try, and it's the murder rate. The government can lie and say that shoplifting is down, but it's challenging for them to lie about murders because murders leave dead bodies. People talk about them. I mean, they usually get reported. Coroners have to be dispatched to the scene, and so on. Between 2019 and 2020, the homicide rate in the United States increased by more than it did at any other point in modern history. Went up by 30%.
When was this?
Following year, it increased by being dispatched to the scene, and so on. Between 2019 and 2020, the homicide rate in the United States increased by more than it did at any other point in modern history. Went up by 30%. Following year, it increased again. Some of the country's most prominent tourist destinations have become too dangerous for many people to visit. Last year, for example, New Orleans became the murder capital of the United States, recording 52 homicides per 100,000 residents.
All right, let's look it up now. What do we know about the increase in U.S. murders in 2020? The U.S. murder rate rose 30% between 2019 and 2020. Okay, this is clearly what Walsh was citing. The largest single year increase. Okay. Wow, so it was a huge increase, one of the largest possibly ever, and at least since 1905. Most states saw their murder rates go up between 2019 and 2020. Okay, experts have pointed to a variety of potential causes, including the economic and societal changes brought on by the coronavirus pandemic and changes in police-community relations after the murder of George Floyd. But the exact reasons remain unclear. The FBI data at least shows that murder wasn't the only form of violent crime to go up last year. The rate of aggravated assault rose nearly 12%. And since aggravated assault is by far the most common type of violent crime, 2 other kinds of violent crime tracked by the FBI, rape and robbery, declined in 2020. Despite rising sharply in 2020, the U.S. murder rate remains below the levels of the early 1990s. Americans remain far less likely to die from murder than from other causes, including from suicide and drug overdose. So it seems as though the overall cause between this big spike is not entirely understood, but I think that what we know thus far can at least give some clarification there, at least, again, add some nuance and some context.
Now, browse news reports on the violent crime wave in this country, and invariably, you'll hear the same excuses. They'll tell you that COVID is responsible for the murder rate. They'll do what the San Francisco city supervisor did and blame systemic issues like policing. What they won't do is tell you that actual...
Well, no, but again, not blaming policing, but the relationship people have with police and the economic changes can oftentimes lead to, an increase in certain types of violent behavior.
A real and immediate solution to this problem is available. In El Salvador, under the leadership of Nayib Bukele.
Here we go, guys. Let's hear his big solution. I'm sure it's going to be very, very smart and very humane.
They have figured out a solution. In 2018, the year before Bukele took office, El Salvador posted a murder rate of 51 per 100,000 people, which is the New Orleans rate. By 2022, the murder rate in the country had fallen to 7.8 per 100,000 people. That's 7.8, not 78. This chart, we have a chart here to show you that shows the magnitude of the decline. You can see that the murder rate was decreasing before Bukele took over, but he took it to an unprecedented low level. I mean, this is a homicide rate now in El Salvador that's significantly lower than what you'll find in several major American cities. And these are not cooked numbers, okay? You know that because Nayib Bukele is overwhelmingly popular in El Salvador. People know that murders are down. They know that they are safer in their communities because they live in these communities. They don't need the government to tell them about it. El Salvador accomplished this massive reduction in homicides, if you can believe it, by doing something radical. They decided to start punishing criminals. Specifically, Bukele implemented something called the Territorial Control Plan. And phase 1 of that plan involved flooding high crime areas with heavily armed police officers. Many criminals with gang affiliations, often indicated by their tattoos, which are often on their face, easy to see, went to prison. Officials paraded them before cameras in a humiliation ritual. This has been an integral part of El Salvador's strategy for years. Just a few months ago, Bukele uploaded a video.
What? So do something radical and arrest criminals. Again, the notion that we're not arresting criminals now is insane to me. But I don't know. What does this have to do with the increase in robbery in San Francisco? You're talking about armed policemen arresting and humiliating gang members who may have been involved in murder or something? I don't know how this translates to anything to do with San Francisco yet.
Which shows gang members in one of the super prisons he's constructed to house them, kind of showing you how it works in these prisons. And we'll play a quick clip of that. Here it is.
This looks fucked up in my opinion. So let's just be honest first and foremost. Humans, I think, and I'm kind of talking out of my ass when I say this, I don't know if they have like a natural whatever need for justice, but I think that humans tend to gravitate towards, yes, justice, a sense of justice. We like justice. But the problem is that our idea of justice is so punitive right now. The notion that when you commit a crime, you are now less than human, and now you're deserving to just be locked up forever, forgotten about. You're a waste. There are even people online who talk about how we should do like experiments on prisoners and stuff. Like people tend to really just strip prisoners and criminals in general, of their humanity. And again, I don't really fault people for that necessarily, because again, I think it's that we want that sense of justice. And I think it also depends, of course, on the crime. You know, if you have somebody who's murdered your family, then of course you're probably going to deal with that differently than someone who is just committing petty theft in a Walgreens here in San Francisco. Right now, though, this notion that like, oh, well, you committed a crime, so now you're going to get locked up and treated really badly for super long time, that's not actually going to help much. First of all, most criminals are not actually aware of the laws. So stricter laws, harsher punishments doesn't really deter crime. It's true. It really doesn't tend to lead to a swift decrease in crime, because most criminals are not hip to the current laws and the judicial process. Instead, we need to be more open to a type of rehabilitative system where people still face consequences for the bad things they do, but then we can also work to rehabilitate them and help them be implemented back into society. Again, depending on the crime. If you're a murderer, if you're a rapist or something like that, then the degree by which you can be rehabilitated might be significantly restricted, limited, if you will. But in most cases, there are a lot of people who are sitting in prison cells right now who could be contributing members of society again.
So it seems like an unpleasant place to be. And El Salvador.
He's going to bring up El Salvador and show these examples of these really harsh prisons. Thank you, chat, for bringing Norway to my attention. Norway has one of the lowest recidivism rates in the world, meaning reoffense. In 2016, only 20% of inmates reoffended within 2 years. The country also has one of the lowest overall crime rates on earth. Norway's prison system houses approximately 3,000 offenders. Norway's criminal justice system focuses on the principles of restorative justice and the rehabilitation of prisoners. Correctional facilities in Norway focus on maintaining custody of the offender and attempting to make them functioning members of society. Norway's laws forbid the use of torture and other cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment as punishment. Prison conditions typically meet international standards. The government permits visits by human rights observers. Norway's prison system is renowned as one of the most effective and humane in the world. Norway, one of the lowest recidivism rates and one of the lowest crime rates on earth, and they do not use inhumane and cruel punishment for criminals.
El Salvador's government has not relented in the past few years. In fact, this summer, El Salvador's Congress approved new rules allowing the trial of up to 900 gang members simultaneously to expedite the otherwise slow-moving judicial process. You know, before giving our dog rough greens, he was so sad and lazy, and now he actually enjoys his squeaky toy.
What? We got to deal with an ad? Oh, no.
Now, in some publications, including the National Review and various left-wing outlets, you'll find alternative explanations for how Bukele lowered the murder rate so quickly. And one popular theory is that all these harsh measures are not reducing crime. Instead, the theory goes, Bukele struck a secret deal with the gangs that convinced them to stop committing crimes. And there's some truth to that. Bukele did indeed try to negotiate a truce with MS-13 and other gangs. But as CNN reported last year, citing an expert in Central American affairs, quote, there are some consensus among security watchers that Bukele's truce with the gangs fell apart in late March 2022, which prompted the MS-16 to do the killing spree to pressure the government to give concessions. So Bukele's latest crackdown followed the breakdown in negotiations, and still, violent crime remains low. The crackdown has saved lives, there's no question about it. Other Central American leaders are now looking to model El Salvador's approach. There's no question about that either. The only remaining question is whether saving these lives and restoring order to society and making communities livable again is worth a few sacrifices. Most notably, is it worth sacrificing some of what we in modern Western society consider to be humane standards for imprisonment? Is it worth sacrificing some of those standards?
It's absolutely not worth sacrificing those standards at all, because inhumane prisons are not contributing to the reduction in crime. Even if you want to talk about it, even if you want to give an example of that fucking, the prison there in El Salvador, my guess would be that the gang is responsible for a mass amount of the crime. So now that a mass amount of the gang members are all in prison, you're going to see a decrease in murder. Because my guess is a huge percentage of that murder rate before was committed by gangs, right? I'm going to use the C word. I'm going to do it. This is common sense, okay? It has nothing to do with the inhumane prison. It's just that they managed to lock up like all the gang members.
response to that question, the media has answered unanimously in the negative. The Sun, for example, just published a lengthy piece lamenting the conditions in El Salvador's prisons. Inmates are crammed together like sardines, the Sun says. Quote, in each 100 square meter cell, around 75 crammed inmates sleep on metal cabins and are forced to share just 2 toilets and 2 sinks. Several other outlets have run similar stories in recent days, talking about how terrible it is in these prisons in El Salvador.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. Yeah.
How it's all a human rights violation. Here's the BBC, for example. Watch.
Relatives of those detained have been desperately trying to find out what's happened to them. I saw the video on Facebook and I was going through it, pausing and rewinding. He was almost unrecognizable, so very thin. I only knew it was him by his tattoos. Angelica says her husband has no links with gangs. She's heard nothing further about him since he was arrested under emergency powers brought in March 2022 by President Bukele.
Listen to that. So the wife of one of the people in this despicable, inhumane prison is saying that her husband, who was arrested, didn't even have any ties to the gang. That they just cracked down and arrested this guy. It sounds like he didn't even have a trial. It sounds like they didn't even have evidence to actually charge him. Is this really what you're suggesting, Matt?
Through satellite imagery, data released by the Salvadoran government, and documents seen by BBC Mundo, we've gathered information about the site. There are 8 cell blocks monitored by 19 watchtowers. Inside the cells, the beds are metal plates, and there are 2 toilets open to the room. So far, the authorities say they have transferred 4,000 prisoners to the jail and that there is capacity for up to 40,000. The BBC has found that at full capacity, each person would have 0.58 square meters of space. The International Committee of the Red Cross recommends 3.4 square meters in a shared cell.
Okay, so this prison does not live up to the standards of the Red Cross or the UN or any Western human rights watchdog group. It's very, very uncomfortable to be in prison in El Salvador right now. So uncomfortable, in fact, that it might even make you think twice about joining a gang in that country to begin with, which is obviously the point. Now,
what about people who didn't join the gang and are in there without their trial? You fucking idiot. This is why I call you a degenerate ape, Matt.
With that said, we hear from someone in the clip who claims that at least one of the inmates, her husband, has no connection to gangs. He's an innocent man caught up in the crackdown, caught up in the net. And we have no way of assessing whether that story is true, obviously. We don't know. Is this person innocent or guilty? How do we know? But if we're being honest, we probably can assume that some non-violent people, even some innocent people, have been caught unwittingly in this net. Some of them may be innocent. True. I mean, anytime the government assumes emergency powers and arrests more than 70,000 people without ensuring their due process rights, it's bound to happen. And yes, it's...
Yeah. He says it so casually. Arrest 70,000 people, ignoring their due process rights. You're like, yeah, I mean, it's bound to happen, you know? Look, guys, it's just what happens with fascism, okay? You just gotta hunker down and deal with it.
It's almost certainly true that many of these inmates live in conditions that would make Amnesty International extremely squeamish. There's no reason to paper over that. Okay. But that's not where the discussion ends or where it should end. The question that follows is a simple one, though it's rarely discussed. And the question is this: would you rather have a safe society where a few innocent people are imprisoned, or would you rather have a very dangerous society where only a few guilty people are imprisoned?
A system for the safety of everybody, a couple innocent people just have to go to prison. That's not a safe society, Matt. That's not a safe world either. Just if I have criminals in prison and now I'm not at risk of getting murdered, well, now I'm not safe from my own government because they might just decide that I have an affiliation with a gang. So I get thrown in jail and they ignore my due process rights. You are unhinged, Matt. Are we willing to make this sacrifice for a safer society? Again, a society that locks innocent people up because it's just a sacrifice needed to make, you know, LOL. That's not a safe society. Imagine if you were the person to be falsely accused. Imagine if you were the person to be wrongly locked up in an inhumane prison like that. You're talking about breaking up families. You're talking about violating people's rights, their human rights. Like you, I mean, even you said their due process rights. My God, this isn't a very Christian attitude.
Ben Franklin famously answered a version of that question. He said, it's better for 100 guilty persons to escape than one innocent person to suffer.
There we go. That was the quote I was thinking about.
And we hear people repeat this mantra unthinkingly all the time. But Ben Franklin didn't address what happens when all those guilty people get out of prison and make it impossible for innocent people to live their lives. What happens when allowing...
What about when the government, in the attempt to lock up the prisoners, starts invoking fascistic policies by which innocent people start getting locked up and my due process is gone? Then what happens?
guilty persons to escape means that innocent people can't start businesses or use the subway or go to the store.
And your fucking solution is that because guilty people are escaping, innocent people now have to suffer as well at the hands of the government.
Walk down the street or guarantee the safety of their children. What happens when letting the guilty go free means letting them randomly assault elderly people or carjack women at the stop?
What happens when trying to stop the guilty also results in locking up innocent people, splitting up families, taking fathers away from their children? Everything he's saying could apply with his quote-unquote solution.
That's unfolding now in major cities all across the country. It's happening so often that CNN is capturing it on camera unintentionally. This is not the high-trust society that existed in the 19th century. When Barack Obama was in office, he made a habit of calling difficult decisions, quote, false choices. He said that we should, for example, reject the, quote, false choice between our security and our ideals. But the truth is that there are hard choices to be made when weighing our security against our ideals. This is not a false choice.
This is why we have a judicial system that allows for due process. Yeah, the solution is due process. You're saying because El Salvador is doing some extreme shit, violating human rights, violating people's due process, that's the reason the murder rate went down. So what, we should be doing this with people that are shoplifting in San Francisco? I cannot even fathom being so inbred that you could sit down and come to this conclusion. Is he sober? How does a sober-minded person actually just think of this?
As Richard Hanania pointed out recently on his Substack, sometimes a slavish devotion to ideals gets a lot of people killed, and it ruins livelihoods.
And sometimes a slavish commitment to ideals, fascistic ideals, leads to a lot of innocent people getting locked up.
Nobody wants to talk about that, but it's true. And as more criminals act with total impunity, it's getting hard to ignore. Besides, the other point here is that nobody can claim that they really have a zero tolerance for, for example, innocent people going to prison. We like to say that, well, we can't allow a single innocent person to go to prison. Because the only way to bring that number down to zero is to have no prisons at all. If you have any kind of prison system, there's going to be that kind of unintended consequence. Regardless, it's going to happen.
What? This is so retarded again. Even so, he's right that with as many crimes as that are committed, it's inevitable that at least one innocent person will probably get locked up here and there. But that doesn't mean you don't take precautions. That doesn't mean you don't try to keep that number as low as possible. That doesn't mean you don't try to make that as unlikely as possible. This is literally the same logic as saying, well, it's inevitable that some people are gonna get in a car crash and die in car accidents. It is inevitable that with so many cars on the road, that someone somewhere will get in a car accident, crash, and die. So that's why I'm not gonna wear my seatbelt, and nobody should wear seatbelts. Like, wait, what? Hold up. Maybe it's true that it's inevitable that some people will die, but that doesn't mean you just stop taking any precautionary measures. Well, it does if you're fucking stupid like Matt Walsh is.
And we all accept that tacitly. We have to, or we cannot have a civilization. But we're currently in the process of losing our civilization, and it's in part because modern Western people have a totally upside-down view of these kinds of trade-offs. Or they're so naive that they think that we can have no trade-offs. But that's not the case. You can't get around it. Either you emphasize justice, social order, and punishing criminals, and you deal with the collateral damage that...
Social order? Ooh, how do you impose social order? Matt, do you suggest the government starts imposing social order? This guy's a fascist and he's not even hiding it.
Comes with this harsher and more brutal approach. Or you emphasize tolerance and acceptance and rehabilitation and forgiveness, and you deal with the collateral damage that comes with that. You will get the collateral damage either way. There's no way around it. In the former case, it means that you'll have a safer and more orderly society where people can live their lives and your children can walk outside without fear. But criminals will be made very uncomfortable.
Or it means that children walk outside with fear that the police are going to arrest their daddy because they think their daddy's a gang member because daddy was singing along to a rap song on his way to work or something. I mean, what are you talking about, dude?
Will be treated in ways that are sometimes quite ugly. And in the latter case, criminals will...
And also, again, he keeps saying this, is it possible that criminals are scared of how bad they'll be treated? Why is the crime so low in Norway, where they have rehabilitative justice? They don't have harsh conditions. They're very transparent. How come they have so much success? And they treat people humanely, Matt? Oof. That sucks for you, man. It sucks that there's literally an entire area on Earth that is doing the opposite of what you're suggesting, and their solution is actually panning out and demonstrated empirically to be effective. It really sucks for you, you know? I know you don't want any of your audience to look it up, but still.
You'll be more comfortable, and prisons will not be such an ugly place, but your communities will be unlivable cesspools. As I've said before, there will be ugliness in society no matter what. You can choose to contain it in prison, or you can let it loose on the streets. You will have it, the ugliness, whether you like it or not. The question is, where do you want it? In prison or outside your front door? El Salvador's solution is not ideal. I mean, you'd prefer if your country didn't need to have super prisons with tens of thousands of violent gangsters in them. Nobody would call that an ideal situation. Certainly not Nayib Bukele.
I like how he still doesn't understand. He keeps saying, like, thousands of the gang members are in the prison. But look, guys, the murder rate went down, and it's because the prison's really brutal. That's why it went down. Like, no, you just said they locked up, like, thousands of the gang members.
At a certain point, though, it becomes necessary because the alternative is even worse. If our leaders don't have the stomach to punish criminals now, then down the line, they'll be replaced by people who do. That's the lesson of El Salvador. We can either learn from it, or we can keep repeating the same mistakes. The choice is ours. Thanks for checking out this video.
An entire location exists that proves him wrong. He gave an alternative explanation that had nothing to do actually with the cruelness of prisons. And because some hungry drug addicts stole a Snickers bar at a Walgreens, that's why we need to start just arresting people without due process, because it's better to feel safe, even if, you know, a couple innocent people have to rot away in prison. Just as long as it's not me rotting away in prison, I guess. That's what we've learned today. This man is unhinged. He is legitimately unhinged.